Hello everyone again, this is Hokum from the Clan. This is a review of the Tier 4 American tank destroyer, the M8A1. Now, before anybody jumps in, yes, originally I was going to do a T29 and T32 review. Fortunately, with the 8.8 coming out and me forgetting to back up my 8.7 install, unfortunately I've got no T29 games to do a comparison between the two tanks. So anyway, I thought I'd jump in with an American tank which I enjoy playing. This, as I said, is the Tier 4 American turreted tank destroyer. This is the M8A1. It's a fast, fairly agile. I'll get onto that later because it's one of the first of the American true turreted tank destroyers. This has the traits which will go on into the Tier 5 and 6 and to a certain extent Tier 7 tank destroyers of this tree, in that fact that they are fast forward speed, but the track rotation speeds are not terribly great, which means that you tend to have large arcing turns, which does somewhat damage the tank's agility. Now, another thing that you'll see with these tanks is that the view range is very good. It's 370 meters on this particular tank with this turret, and combined with binoculars and camo net means that this tank is a very good spotter. In fact, I've actually platooned up with M5 Stuart tanks and have come very well placed in Tier 8 matches. As you can see here, the acceleration is pretty good, and as is the reverse speed. You can see me going back up the hill there to take a shot at that Hetzer. I'd recommend, if you're playing this tank, to go for the 57mm gun. Compared to the 75, sorry, the amount of penetration is insane. It's got 110 with standard ammunition and 180 if you're going to be firing premium. Notice I don't actually have premium in this tank because I don't tend to find I need it. 110 penetration is fine for almost anything you'll meet, anything up to even Tier 6s. I'll be getting onto that a bit more later as well. The rate of fire is 24 rounds per minute, and you can see that this thing is just an absolute monster with its rate of fire. The damage per clip is only 75 per shot, but it's certainly enough for a Tier 4 tank, and against Tier 5 and Tier 6 tanks it certainly pecks them to death, especially with the rate of fire and the decent penetration. Combined, as you notice here, I'm stopping in bushes and using my camo ability. It simply sits there and just pecks people to death at range. The turret traverse speed on this thing, like most of the American turreted tank destroyers, is quite slow. It's mainly due to the fact that you then can't use it to circle strafe enemy tanks to death, which, if it had fast turret traverse, it would be monstrously overpowered. The slow traverse speeds with the tracks and the turret means you have to be a little bit more standoff. Notice here how when I'm coming up this hill here, gun depression on this thing is also pretty good. With -10 to the front and -10 to the sides, the gun depression means you can really get hull down in this tank. The armour in this tank is terrible, to be perfectly honest, and it's another thing which continues on to the Tier 5 and Tier 6 tank destroyers in this branch. However, another thing which goes on, especially for the Tier 6, the Hellcat, is that the gun mantle is particularly hard. If you can get into a very good hold down position, notice that because it's an open top turret, there's no cupolas or no gumph on top of your tank. You can literally be sat there with just your gun exposed, and all they can see is a gun mantle and a gun pointing at them. That means that with the good armour in the mantle, and at this tier, I think if I remember correctly, it's around about 75mm, the gun mantle armour on this, which, seeing as it's curved as well, is particularly good. It's just makes them very hard to hold down, to take out. Unless they're going to be firing HE at you, which is devastating because it's an open top turret, it's particularly hard to get this tank. Now, as you can see here, I bounce a couple of shots in this engagement here, and because I'm literally almost pretty much solidly hold down, see, bounce. I can't, but in the side there, yeah, the side and frontal actual chassis armour is terrible. It's only about 20 to 30 millimeters. But check this out for a long range shot. He's over there somewhere. You can see I take a couple of shots here with the damaged gun, which is pointless, and I then think, nah, sod it, repair, and go on to doing some more damage. Now this is a tier 4 match, and against tier 4s I think this is quite hard, this tank. Whereas the Matilda's got armour, it really loses out because it has no speed, and against tier 6 tanks it can get into bad situations it can't get out of. Whereas this tank, which has good speed and good camo rating, it can get out of nasty situations even in high tier matches. The accuracy of the gun with the 57mm, it's okay. I mean, you can see that the reticle gets quite small and it allows for some long distance sniping shots, but it's enough to have a go at doing long distance sniping, but it's not quite down to the 0.3 regions as some of the tank destroyers can get. This is 0.39 with this gun, which is, as I said, perfectly reasonable for having a go at sniping with. Team cap us out, so I can't get an 8th kill, but Jan there's having a good stab at that DW2. This is a tier 6 match, only just a tier 6 match, there's only one on either side. But this tank I would not fear being in a tier 6 match. If you wanted to load it with some additional premium rounds for taking on more tanks frontally, you could do. The only things that I'd really worry about frontally would be probably VK3601Hs, T150s, almost anything else, KV1Ss, KV1s, T1 heavies, they can all be easily penetrated frontally with this gun. 110 penetration when you know where to shoot them. It's going to go straight through them like a knife through butter. As I mentioned before, you can see on the XVM there that the view range with binoculars on this thing is pretty good, and it means that you can act pretty much like a scout with this tank, as you can with the T49 as well. There's a few people there going a little bit too aggressively. You can see that the rate of fire and the ability to shoot targets on the move of this thing, even at long range, is pretty nice. SU-85, not a terribly hard target. See, I'm doing damage to him frontally. It's only got 45 mils of armour, which even angled is not going to be too much of a worry for this gun. And it's just simply that rate of fire. It's the 57mm in American terms, but in British terms it's the 6-pounder, and in fact it was the 6-pounder gun. It was an American licensed version of that gun. Used to be, quite a lot by American tank destroyer, man-based tank destroyers, as opposed to tracked tank destroyers, wheeled around on all the carts and carriages and such. This is the ability of this tank to sit in a bush, unseen, and just simply rain fire in on enemy tanks. If you're in a city map or something like that, yeah, a tier 6 match would not be a pleasant place to be on Himmelsdorf. But in a situation like this, Malinovka, steppes, anywhere like that, anywhere where you can get into a good hold down position with a little bit of cover, you can just rain fire in on tier 6 tanks until the cows come home. There are some people that say that you shouldn't use tank destroyers as scouts. I think this, the T49, and to a certain extent the Hellcat, are probably a change for that. I say you probably can use these quite happily as scouts. The T49 with its good camo skill and also good speed is pretty good, and I can't see any reason why you couldn't use this as a scout. One of those slightly slow matches where our team has gone straight for the cap, and the only thing that's holding the outside here against a load of enemy tank destroyers is a little tier 4 tank. However, don't bet on the tier 5s. They're not going to make it for very much longer. Fortunately, it's another one of those matches where I'm hoping that our team don't cap them out so I can get some more damage in. Fortunately, it doesn't happen quite like that. You can see, because of its quite small size, although not that tree down, you can actually get fairly nimbly around bushes and around trees with a fair degree of safety. And there you go, we've got, what are we looking at here, 300, 400 metre snipes. Miss a couple of shots because I don't lead quite enough. Bang, straight through his front line. SU-85. Again, sniping him straight in the side armour. I think I'll chuck in one of these shots actually. I think these people will be a little bit more cautious, but oh well. More XP for me. Death. Anyway, that's a quick little overview of the M8A1. Thank you, and see you again. Bye.